My name is Andrew. I'm 28. This happened just 6 months ago, and I haven't spoken a word of it to anyone until now. After my divorce, I moved into a small house outside of Denver. It was cheap, old, and came with furniture left by the previous tenant. I didn't care. I just needed space, a place to reset. My ex kept the apartment, the dog, everything. All I took were my clothes and my sanity, which was already hanging by a thread. The house was tucked between pine trees and silence. No neighbors in direct view. Just a long gravel driveway and a back patio that looked into the woods. The first few weeks were quiet. Almost too quiet. No traffic. No footsteps above me. No one telling me I was forgetting something again. I should have felt free. But instead, I started to feel watched. It began with small things. I'd wake up and find the kitchen light on, even though I was sure I'd turned it off. The shower curtain would be pulled closed when I always left it open. Drawers half open. Nothing major, just little disruptions. I chalked it up to stress. Divorce does that to you, right? But then I started hearing her voice. My ex-wife's. At first, it was subtle, like a thought I couldn't shake. I'd be washing dishes and hear her humming the song she used to hum when she cooked. I'd walk into the bedroom and hear her sigh, that tired, sharp little sigh she did when she was annoyed. I thought I was going crazy. I even recorded myself one night, just to prove to myself nothing was happening. But I heard it on the playback. At exactly 2:33 a.m., over the sound of me lightly snoring, came a whisper, soft, bitter, unmistakable. "You let me rot in there." I sat in bed for hours replaying that moment. My blood went ice cold. I hadn't spoken to her in weeks. She was alive. She was fine. This couldn't be her. I deleted the file. The next night, something new happened. I woke up around 3 a.m., freezing. The bedroom window was wide open, even though it was locked when I went to sleep. And on the fogged-up glass, written in a long swipe of a finger, were 3 words. I moved back. I searched the entire house. Every room, every closet. Nothing. No signs of entry. No footprints outside. But that smell, a faint trace of her old perfume, was in the air. Lavender and dust. I hadn't smelled it in months. I tried to sleep on the couch that night, but I kept hearing the creak of the floorboards upstairs, right above the living room, like someone pacing slow and barefoot. The next morning, I found one of her old shirts hanging in my closet. She'd never been to this house. I knew she hadn't. That's when I called her. I didn't care how weird it sounded, but when she answered, she sounded tired. Distant. Cold. "Andrew," she said. "I told you to stop calling me." I started to explain, the shirt, the voice, the message. But she interrupted me. "Do you remember what you said before you left me?" she asked. I froze. I had said a lot of things, most of them angry. But the one she meant was this. "I hope something comes for you in that place. I hope you stay there." She hung up. And that night, it got worse. I woke to the sound of crying. A woman somewhere in the house. I grabbed a flashlight and followed the sound down the hallway, into the guest bedroom I never used. The door was ajar. Inside was pitch black. The crying stopped. I pushed the door open, and the room was cold. Not just chilly, freezing. My breath fogged in front of me. In the center of the room was a figure. Sitting on the bed. Long black hair. Pale skin. Wearing my ex-wife's clothes. I whispered her name, Jessica, but she didn't move. Then she turned her head. Not all the way. Just enough that I saw the side of her face. And it wasn't her. It was her face, but not her. The mouth was wrong. Too wide. The eyes were glassy and black like ink. The head twitched like a bad puppet. Then she smiled. "This time," she said, "you don't get to leave." I slammed the door and ran outside barefoot in the cold, didn't even grab a coat. I stayed in my car until the sun came up. When I returned, the house was silent. The guest room was empty. The bed was made. Nothing out of place, except one thing. On the kitchen table was a wedding photo. One I'd never seen. Me and Jessica, standing in that guest bedroom, smiling. But behind us, peeking from the doorway, was another figure. Dressed like her, looking directly at the camera. I moved out the next day. Burned the photo. But I still see her. In my dreams. In windows. Sometimes reflected in the mirror when I know I'm alone. And I've learned something. When you live alone, you notice when something else starts pretending it lives there too. It started with a knock at 8:43 a.m. on a Saturday. I know that exact time because I was still half asleep on the couch, and my phone lit up right after I heard it. A quiet but deliberate knock-knock at the front door. I was 15, home alone for the weekend. My parents were in Chicago for my dad's company retreat, and after weeks of begging, they finally gave in and let me stay home by myself. It was supposed to be a chill, responsibility-building experience. They stocked the fridge, left emergency numbers, reminded me 3 times to keep the doors locked. I thought it'd be fun, junk food, movies I wasn't normally allowed to watch, staying up as late as I wanted. It felt like a win. That was until the knock. I sat up, rubbed my eyes, and looked toward the front door. The blinds were drawn, but I could see a faint shadow at the bottom. Something was blocking the light. When I opened the door, there was no one there. Just a package, plain brown cardboard. No logos, no Amazon tape, no return address. It wasn't even sealed properly, just one line of masking tape across the top. It had my house number on it, but no name. Not even a shipping label. Now, maybe this is where most people would just leave it alone. But I was curious, and home alone with nothing better to do. I brought it inside, set it on the kitchen table, and opened it. Inside was a camcorder, like one of those old Sony handhelds from the early 2000s. Dusty but intact. Along with it was a folded piece of paper. Thick paper, almost like someone had written on cardstock. The message was in black marker, handwritten. Watch this. Do not show anyone. Do not leave the house. No name. No explanation. I stared at that message for a solid minute, heart pounding in my chest. It felt like a prank, maybe one of my friends trying to scare me. But none of them knew my parents were out of town, and none of them had this kind of creepy flair. I turned the camcorder over in my hands. There was a tape inside, labeled in tiny, careful handwriting. Tyler's house, 3:17 a.m. I froze. That was my name. My house. The time. I couldn't breathe for a second. I stood there, holding the camera, just listening to the silence around me. Then I did something really stupid. I hit play. The tape started in night vision, grainy green footage with faint static. The camera was positioned in a hallway. My hallway. I recognized the scuff mark on the baseboard, the crooked picture frame. And the camera was pointed directly at the stairs leading up to my room. Nothing moved for a long time. Almost a full minute of stillness. Then something stepped into frame. A person. Sort of. It moved wrong. Like it didn't understand how to walk. Its legs bent at an odd angle, and its arms hung lower than they should have. But the worst part was the face, or lack of one. Just smooth skin, like it was covered in a stretched mask of flesh. It walked toward the camera, then stopped, tilted its head, and stared. Then, with no warning, it turned and glided up the stairs, too fast, no footsteps, no sound. The camera started shaking, like whoever held it was panicking. The next clip was in my room. My bed was empty, covers messy, like someone had just left. Then came the whisper. Soft, croaky, unnatural. You saw me. That means I can see you now. The screen went black. I dropped the camera and backed away from the table. My heart felt like it was going to explode. Every hair on my body was standing up. Then came the knock. 2 knocks. From the back door. I didn't move. Then the front door. I grabbed a knife from the drawer and ran to the bathroom, slamming the door behind me and locking it. I turned off the light. Sat there in total darkness, listening. No footsteps. Just knocking. Moving from room to room. Knock knock. Then silence. Then again. Like it was testing the walls. Listening for movement. Hours passed. Or maybe minutes. I lost track of time. I must have fallen asleep at some point because when I woke up, the house was silent. Sunlight was leaking through the window. Morning. I crept out of the bathroom, holding the knife tight. Everything was gone. The camera. The box. The note. Gone like they'd never existed. But there was something new. On the back of the front door, someone had carved into the wood. Thanks for watching. That was 5 months ago. I never told my parents. Who would believe me? But now, every few nights, at random hours, I hear it again. Knock. Knock. And sometimes when I pass a mirror, I see something behind me. My name's Mark. This happened just last year, mid-January. I rented a small off-grid cabin deep in the Montana wilderness to get away from work stress. My therapist called it a mental reset. No phone, no internet, no people. Just snow, silence, and time to clear my head. I booked 2 weeks. The cabin was old school. 1 room. Wood stove. Propane lamps. The nearest neighbor was supposedly 3 miles away. There was a trail, but it was buried under 3 feet of snow within the first day. Exactly what I wanted. The first 3 days were peaceful. I chopped wood, cooked over a small burner, read old books I found on the shelves. At night, I sat by the fire and just listened to the wind through the trees. But by night 4, something shifted. It started with a knock. Not on the front door, on the back wall, right behind where I sat reading. It was a firm, solid knock. 2 quick taps. I froze, looked out the window. Nothing. I grabbed the flashlight and walked around the cabin. No tracks. No animals. No wind damage. I told myself it was just the cabin settling. The next night, it happened again. Same knock. Same spot. Knock, knock. This time, I responded. I walked to the back wall, tapped twice with my knuckle. For a full minute, nothing. Then, from the front door. I didn't open it. I didn't even move. I just stood there, heart pounding, staring at the door like it would explode open. Eventually, I convinced myself someone was messing with me. Maybe a lost hiker, or some creepy mountain local trying to scare the outsider. But again, no footprints. No sound of retreat. Just the knock. By the 7th night, I was sleeping with my axe next to the bed. I'd boarded the windows and locked the door with a shovel braced across the frame. Then the knocking changed. It started on the roof. 2 knocks. Then on the wall. Then the opposite wall. Then the window. Like something was circling me. Testing the walls. I was too scared to move. Just sat by the fire, axe in hand, listening to it go around, and then stop above the bedroom. The next morning, I went outside, found nothing. But I noticed something carved into the snow by the back door. 2 circles. And a line underneath. A crude face. Smiling. The knocking didn't stop. Every night, same pattern. But on the 10th night, something new happened. It knocked twice, and then said my name. I was sitting at the table when it happened. It sounded like a woman, but the voice wasn't right, like it had been rehearsed. Croaky and flat. "Mark, let me in." I said nothing. Then it said it again, and again, each time more frantic, like it couldn't understand why I wasn't responding. The fire started to dim. I saw the handle of the door twist, even though I had it bolted shut from the inside. Then came the last thing I'll never forget. It whispered, "You talked to me. That means I can come in now." It wasn't a woman's voice anymore. It sounded like me. Same tone. Same exact cadence I used when I answered the knock on night 2. I barely remember grabbing the axe. I didn't sleep. I sat on the floor until sunrise. When the light came, I packed everything and started hiking down the mountain through waist-deep snow. I made it 2 miles before a snowplow found me. I told the police someone had been stalking the cabin. They searched it top to bottom, found no signs of forced entry, no prints, but they found one thing inside the bedroom wall. There was a hollow space. Something had been living inside the wall, between the insulation and the boards. And scratched into the wood, hundreds of times, was one phrase. 2 knocks to speak. 2 knocks to enter. I don't stay alone anymore. I don't go off-grid. And every time I hear a knock on my door, I wait to see if there's a second one.